Hello, my name is Elsie, and I'm 28 years old. I work hard every day to make ends meet and help my family, but the people I care about the most don't seem to care about me. I live with my mom and my younger sister, Rosie, who is 18. Rosie is the spoiled one in the family. She gets away with everything, and my mom always takes her side, no matter what. One evening, I came home from work, exhausted and looking forward to some peace in my room. As soon as I opened the door, I froze. The walls were covered in bright splashes of paint, red, blue, and yellow streaks dripping down, ruining the calm space I had worked so hard to create. At first, I couldn't believe my eyes. Then it hit me. Rosie. She loved to paint, but never cared about cleaning up or asking for permission. My room had become her latest canvas. I marched into the living room where Rosie was lying on the couch, scrolling through her phone. Rosie, why did you do that to my room? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. She barely looked up. It's just paint. You're so dramatic, Elsie, she said with a shrug. Do you have any idea how much effort I put into keeping that room nice? You ruined it, I said, my voice rising. Before Rosie could answer, Mom walked into the room. What's going on here? She asked, already frowning at me. Mom, look at what Rosie did to my room. She ruined the walls with her paint, I explained, hoping she would understand. Instead of siding with me, Mom turned to me with an annoyed look. Elsie, stop picking on your sister. You're always jealous of her. Maybe you painted the walls yourself to get her in trouble, she said. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Why would I do that to my own room? I asked, feeling my frustration boil over. Because you're always looking for reasons to complain, Mom said sharply. You need to grow up and stop making everything about you. My chest tightened, and I couldn't say anything more. How could my own mother think I would lie about something like this? Rosie smirked, knowing she had won again, and I felt a deep sadness settle over me. I went back to my ruined room and shut the door. Sitting on the edge of my bed, I thought about everything I'd done for this family. What they didn't know was that I was secretly paying for most of the household expenses. The rent, the groceries, the bills, all of it came from me. But to them, I was just a problem. For the first time, I wondered if it was worth staying in a place where I was so undervalued. That night, as I stared at the painted walls, I decided something had to change. The next morning, I woke up feeling drained, but determined. I didn't say a word to Rosie or Mom as I got ready for work. My ruined walls were a constant reminder of how little my efforts were appreciated. As I packed my bag, an idea began to form in my mind. For years, I had quietly paid for everything. I had taken on the responsibility of keeping the household running, but it was clear they didn't care. So I decided to stop. No more rent payments, no more grocery bills, no more covering for them. I would keep my money for myself and see how they managed without me. At work, I couldn't focus. My mind kept drifting back to last night. How did we get to this point? Growing up, Mom had always favored Rosie, but I thought things would change as we got older. Instead, it only got worse. Rosie could do no wrong, while I was always blamed for everything. That evening when I got home, the house was unusually quiet. Rosie was in her room, blasting music, and Mom was in the kitchen. I sat down at the dining table and opened my laptop to check my bank account. For the first time in years, I didn't make the usual payments for the rent or utilities. It felt strange, but also liberating. The next few days were awkward. At first, Mom didn't seem to notice anything was wrong. But by the weekend, the cracks started to show. Elsie, Mom called from the kitchen, why hasn't the electricity bill been paid? The company just sent a warning. I didn't look up from my book. I'm not paying it this month, I said calmly. She walked into the living room, hands on her hips. What do you mean you're not paying it? You always take care of the bills. I finally met her gaze. Exactly. I always take care of everything, but no one appreciates it. I've decided I'm done. Mom's face turned red. You can't just stop paying. This is your responsibility. No, Mom, I said firmly. It's not. I've been doing it because I wanted to help, but I'm tired of being taken for granted. You and Rosie can figure it out. She stormed off, muttering under her breath about how ungrateful I was. I knew she would complain, but I didn't care anymore. For once, I was putting myself first. A week later, the consequences of my silent protest became impossible to ignore. The electricity had been cut off, and there was barely any food in the fridge. Mom and Rosie were furious. "This is all your fault, Elsie," Rosie shouted, banging on my door. "Why are you being so selfish?" I opened the door and faced her. "Selfish? You ruined my room, and Mom blamed me for it. I've been paying for everything while you sit around and do nothing. Now, you know what it feels like to have real responsibilities." Rosie scoffed. "You're just jealous of me because Mom likes me more." Her words stung, but I didn't let her see it. "If you think that's true, then you and Mom can handle everything without me. Good luck." Later that night, Mom tried to guilt-trip me. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, tears in her eyes. "Elsie, we're a family. Families are supposed to stick together. How could you do this to us?" I looked at her, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. "Mom, families are also supposed to appreciate each other. You've never once acknowledged everything I've done for this house. I'm not doing it anymore." Mom didn't respond, and for the first time, I saw a doubt flicker in her eyes. 2 weeks later, I packed my bags. I had found a small apartment not far from work. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. I left a note on the kitchen table explaining my decision to leave and wishing them well. I didn't expect them to understand, but it didn't matter anymore. As I locked the door behind me, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Sadness for what I was leaving behind, but also relief and hope for what lay ahead. It was time to start a new chapter, one where I valued myself as much as I had valued them. Moving into my new apartment felt surreal. The space was small but cozy, and for the first time in years, I had complete control over my surroundings. No more ruined walls, no more ungrateful comments, just peace. I unpacked my things and set up my room, decorating it exactly how I liked. As I hung the final picture frame, I smiled, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. The next few weeks were a learning curve. I had to adjust to living alone and managing my own expenses, but it was worth it. At work, I began to focus more, taking on new projects and even earning praise from my manager. Slowly but surely, I started to rebuild my confidence. One evening, as I relaxed on my couch with a book, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Mom. "Mom, the landlord is threatening to evict us. You need to come back and fix this mess." I stared at the message for a long moment, debating whether to respond. Then I simply typed, "I can't help you anymore. You and Rosie need to figure it out." For the first time in my life, I felt no guilt. Just as I was settling into my new life, something unexpected happened. I received a call from an unknown number. It was the landlord of my family's home. "Hi, Elsie, I know you used to handle the payments. Your mother is months behind on rent, and if it's not settled soon, they'll be evicted." I felt a pang of guilt, but quickly pushed it aside. "I'm sorry, but I don't live there anymore. They'll need to work it out." The landlord sighed. "I understand, but I thought you should know. They're planning to sell some of your things to cover the rent." I froze. My old room still had a few items I hadn't taken with me. Sentimental things like childhood journals and family photos. Panic set in. How could they even think about selling my things? That evening, I drove to the house. I hadn't planned to go back, but I couldn't let them take what was mine. When I arrived, the house looked as run down as I felt it would be. The lights were dim, and the yard was overgrown. I walked in without knocking. The sight that greeted me was chaotic, boxes scattered everywhere, and my mother and Rosie were arguing. "What are you doing with my things?" I demanded, my voice sharp. Mom turned to me, startled. "Elsie, you have no right to come here after abandoning us." "I didn't abandon you," I shot back. "I left because you never appreciated me. And now you're selling my stuff? You've crossed the line." Rosie rolled her eyes. "We need the money. Elsie, you left us in this mess." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "That's not my problem. I worked hard for years while you both sat back and did nothing. I'm here to take what's mine, and then I'm done with you for good." Mom started to argue, but I cut her off. "No, you don't get to guilt trip me anymore. This is your responsibility, not mine." I gathered my belongings and left, ignoring their protests. As I drove away, I felt a mix of anger and relief. This was truly the end. In the months that followed, I thrived in ways I never imagined. Without the constant weight of my family's demands, I had more time and energy to focus on myself. I started taking night classes to pursue a career in interior design, something I'd always dreamed of. My boss noticed my improved performance at work and offered me a promotion. With the extra income, I was able to upgrade my apartment and even take a much-needed vacation. For the first time, I felt truly free. Occasionally, I would get messages from Mom and Rosie, but I never responded. I had made my choice, and I wasn't going back. One evening, I sat on my balcony, sipping tea and looking out at the city lights. For the first time in years, I felt at peace. I didn't need their approval anymore. I had found my own happiness,